Alright, welcome back to another live stream of exposing D&D 5e CRs with Andrew. As always, I am Andrew, and I'm looking forward to this next hour of live streaming. Hopefully you're here to join me, and if not, maybe you're watching the VOD later on, or seeing one of the condensed versions of the monsters that we may take a look at here. If you heard that crash and whatnot, that was my cat jumping up on top of my desk. Okay, so since I'm currently waiting on people to join me in chat, and I probably am streaming at a really bad time, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is probably around dinner time. I'm not expecting anyone really as of right yet. Hopefully we'll get some people in a little bit. But with that, I want to take a look right off the bat with the Tanaruk. The Tanaruk was a monster video I did many months ago, back when I was still making actual, what I would consider high quality produced videos. And boy, did I really mess up on the Tanaruk's reaction. I just kind of kept doing this whole thing of, oh, it gets attacked, well, it's going to attack back, and we could have any number of attacks in one round of combat. My total lack of remembering that, oh, you only get one reaction per round unless otherwise stated. There are one or two other monsters that I know of, particularly, that can have multiple reactions. Right off the bat, the Hydra's one. The Hydra gets as many reactions as it has heads, and then there's one monster, I can't remember the name of it, but it has an unlimited amount of reactions. So with that, let's take a look in Volo's Guide to Monsters here, and see what we have for the new CR numbers for the Tanaruk, because the video, which I will link to in one version or the other, is just terrible, unfortunately. Plus it's extremely old, and I didn't have the confidence that I do now. Alright, so let's take a look in VGM here to find the Tanaruk. And the Tanaruk is on page 186. So, for whatever reason, because they add the cover, we have to actually add 1 to the page number and go to 187. And here is our Fiend and Orc. It's a dual species creature. It's a Fiend and Orc. Actually, demon, as well as Demon. And we will take a look at its chart here. Oh, look at that. It's right above the Quickling, something one of the monsters I had exposed a while back. Alright, so getting a close-up on the Tanaruk, we can see how demonic this creature is, and how ferocious it is, even to other orcs. It's a pretty deadly monster. Alright, let's... excuse me. Let's shift over to my tool, and start looking at how to break down the Tanaruk and expose its challenge rating 5 to see if it actually is a 5 or not. So as always, we'll start with the basics here of its armor class and hit points, and shift directly into the few stats that I actually need. So resetting my chart here in my tool, because I was doing something else, I don't remember what monster I was looking at before. We'll add in the 14 armor class that it has. And it's a medium fiend, so we don't have to worry about that. And it has 10 d8 hit dice with a 20 constitution score, 9 wisdom, and 9 charisma. Now this should be a CR5 monster, so we'll put that into the expected CR just to see what happens. And we will now shift down into the skills area. Now, knowing what I know about these skills, we don't care about the skills, but we do care about the damage resistances. And for the damage resistance, we have fire and poison. And since we only have 2, we're going to ignore those for now. They are very high common types, so that may come into play later on, but for the time being, and my constant rule of thumb of 3 or more, we're going to skip the damage resistances and see what we get. Now, since this is the first orc we've actually looked at as a group here, and haven't had to use it besides for my shorts and some of my other videos, in the trait section we actually have aggressive. Now, the sad thing about aggressive is that it doesn't give much of a bonus, even though it allows the Tanaruk to move as a bonus action towards hostile creatures. And with that, our Tanaruk only gets a +2 DPR bonus. So at the moment we have a 0, and you'll see over here for the average DPR, we're getting 2 average DPR per round. It's helpful to chase down targets, but not really much else after that. So I guess for the fact that it's giving the monster extra movement, they decided, oh, you know, +2 DPR per round is something. Honestly, I probably would have given it a different bonus, and what that is right now, I'm not really sure. But with that in mind, let's move to the other trait that it has, magic resistance. And we already know what this is. This is going to be the +2 effective AC bonus. So our Tanaruk's AC moves from a 14 to a 16 for its effective AC when doing calculations. Now, our Tanaruk doesn't have anything else to take into consideration for the time being, so we'll skip down into the actions and the reactions. And we'll look at the reactions in a moment after the fact. And we will come over to the combat workspace and start putting in the multi-attacks for its bite and greatsword. So our Tanaruk can make 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its greatsword. And the bite will be a +7 to hit. So we'll just come over here and shift that from a 3 to a 7 so I don't forget. And we'll put in the damage per round for 1 bite, which will be 8.5 points of damage because it's 1d8 and it's an odd number of dice. And then the greatsword will be an 11 average damage to hit. So that's it for damages, at least during its turn. And then once per round, we'll also get a reaction for Unbridled Fury. Now, the multi-attack being 1 of each will end up being, was that 19.5? So we have 19.5 for our multi-attack. Now on top of that, we also have reactions here. Unbridled Fury. In response to being hit by a melee attack, the Tanaruk can make 1 melee weapon attack with advantage against the attacker. Alright, so giving it advantage technically gives it a +1 attack bonus, but it's only during the reaction, no other time. So it's kind of tricky to say whether or not the attack bonus should be taken into account or not. But let's see what happens when we just put in the extra attacks from its Unbridled Fury. And considering that any DM would probably want to end up using the highest attack value, unless the Tanaruk loses the greatsword somehow, we would probably end up using the greatsword. So we'll say that, you know, it's going to get hit with a melee attack at least once. There's always going to be a paladin or possibly a melee ranger or a rogue or someone, a fighter, a barbarian, someone. There's a high chance of having a melee class, at least one, up against the Tanaruk, and they're always going to at least get 1 attack. So because of that, we'll say that the reactions are allowed once, and we can add in an extra greatsword attack here. So we'll add in +11 more. Oops. Let's add in 1 more of these. And now we have a multi-attack of 30.5. Now, since this is pretty much going to be what the Tanaruk is doing every round of combat, we'll just simply go and do this. We'll take the multi-attack for round 1 and just multiply it by 3. That way it counts for rounds 2 and 3 as well, and we have a full attack of 30 average damage per round. Alright, so we pretty much have everything taken into account besides the damage resistance and the possible advantage for the attacks during this attack here for the Unbridled Fury. Alright, let's see what we got here, because right at the moment we only have a CR4. Can we possibly work these around a little bit more to see what happens here? Well, let's see what happens if we give just 1 bonus, attack bonus here. +1 to the attack bonuses for the Unbridled Fury, because that is pretty much going to be happening all the time. And I believe we could probably throw an ambusher here to see what happens. Alright, that's a +1 effective attack bonus. Still not enough to shift our Tanaruk down 1 to a CR5. Alright, well, let's see what's actually happening here. Well, we have an attack bonus of 7, and that's only moving it to an 8. So what we're seeing here is that already, because of the 30 DPR, our Tanaruk is going to be in a OCR4, expecting an attack bonus of 5. It has an attack bonus of 7, that's already 2 over, resulting in the +1 bonus, and shift to an OCR5. So what we have here then is that when we add in the extra attack bonus from the Unbridled Fury, it's only possibly shifting it up to an 8, and we're not really seeing it. Hey Cornucopia, thanks you could make it again. It's been a little while, but great to have you here. I just noticed you were here. At the moment, I am trying to figure out where the issue is with the Tanaruk and not having a CR5, because I really messed it up in the video that I did many months ago. Alright, so back looking at the Tanaruk here. This is why the attack bonus, advantage attack bonus here, isn't really going to do anything from the Unbridled Fury. So we'll just uncheck that, because it's only happening 1 out of the 3 attacks every round and not affecting it every attack. So the last thing I could say is that the Tanaruk is possibly getting a bonus from the damage resistance. And it's a pretty big one, being fire and poison. Those are pretty common attack types. So let's just see what happens if we throw in resistance here for our CR5. Well, sure enough, everything moves down to where it's supposed to be. But my rules suggest that usually it's only 3 or more. It's a little iffy with the Tanaruk here and having the 2 of fire and poison. Normally I wouldn't say this is the case, but I might make a special case because of the fire and poison here. So it's kind of in a weird area of, is it a CR4 or is it actually a CR5? It's hard to say because we only have 2 damage resistances, and normally I say no. Normally you wouldn't want to take those into account because, generally speaking, most damage resistances will start to take effect when you have the big 3, bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing. So, is this a CR5? Maybe. It kind of depends on the party. You know, if you have a rogue maybe that's slinging a whole bunch of poisoned daggers, or rangers shooting poisoned arrows, or you have a couple mages of one form or the other using fire damage, then this is probably going to end up being a CR5 because of the resistances and having the damage. But if you don't, well then this is probably going to be a CR4. And then technically this should be rated as an overrated monster. I would probably end up playing this as a CR4 just because in both of my games, the majority of my players don't have fire. Well, yeah, don't really use fire except for one player in one of my 2 games, and no one's using poison. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Tanaruk is actually a CR4. Alright, so I need to come back over here and fix my notes on the Tanaruk. And you can see here from my notes prior that I was all over the place with this and wasn't sure. Now I can fix this. So we have a 3, 5, and a 4 for our Tanaruk. 3, 5, and a 4. And we'll say overrated. Changing this to CR5 only when resistances apply. Alright, so while we're in the middle here of going back and forth with a new monster, Cornucopia, do you have any recommendations for something to look at? Otherwise, I will just go to my next monster. Correspondence. 285. 286. Okay, and we got some fun looking monsters here. One of my other regular viewers, I can't think of their name off the top of my head, was saying how these are the more or less cousins of the star spawns. I mean, these ones would come from within the Earth, while the star spawns obviously come from the stars. Do you do plane shifts? Yeah, I could probably do plane shifts. I don't know if I have the book off the top of my head or not. I could probably get it really quick, though. Which ones in particular are you looking at, Cornucopia? waiting on Cornucopia's response, let me get the emissary set up here. Plane shift, Isolin. All right. And is that the book? Let me take a look at that. Let me see where that one's coming from. Oh. Plane shift, Isolin is the book. I'm taking it. Geschaft, Sun's Avatar. Okay, let's see here. Plane shift, Isolin. Let me see if I can find that book really quick. Give me a moment while I'm coming right back, and let me fix this chat. Oh goodness, that chat box is all over the place. Nope, not that. Live chat box. There we go. Let's see here. Oh dear, what did I just do? Okay. Alright, I'll fix that later. I don't know what I just did to the chat box. Alright, let's see here. No, where is that? There we go, alright. And... Geschaft, Sun Avatar. How you been, Cornucopia? What have you been up to lately? Let's see here, and then what else? Where would that possibly be? It's a bit niche. It's semi-official D&D crossover materials. If you want to stick to published content, that's perfectly cool. Also, the monsters lined up look really cool. Yeah, a bunch of some of them I've already covered. Some of them are just random, crazy random requests. Let's see here. Oh, shoot. Alright. I can do it. I just don't have the book off the top of my head. I can only get my hands on Amonkhet, Innistrad, or Zendikar, but I can do it a little differently. We just won't have a reference on screen. That's the only problem. Alright, so we will do that in the meantime. So let me get rid of that. And alright, back to the live view. Okay, so while we're I unfortunately can't give you a view of Geschaft. I can break it down. I just have it on a side reference here. And let's see here. So that's a 10. Let's see here. Geschaft from PSX. Okay. Hey Vandari, how you doing? Let's see here. Cornucopia. I've been doing pretty well. Kinda wonky schedule, plus time zones means that catching every vid on time is not possible sometimes, but I enjoy being busy. Yeah, I don't blame you. I picked a really bad time to do my live streams. Right now, it's pretty much the only time I can do this, sadly. And I know I was just saying at the beginning of the stream, like I've picked right in the middle of dinner for like East Coasters anyways. All right, so we're gonna look at Geschaft, the Sun's Avatar. I don't have a reference on screen, unfortunately, but I do have one off screen that I can use. And we'll start going with there. So Geschaft is a gargantuan beast. And they have, let's see here. It looks like Geschaft is probably like a T-Rex or something. Yeah, some kind of like a molted T-Rex of some sort, which is kind of cool. All right, they have a 16 for AC. And they have, let's see here, 14 D20 with 18 Constitution, 16 Wisdom, 6 Charisma, and should be a CR 10. All right, there is our basic information. And then looking at the skills for Gishath, we have 4 saves in Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. So we'll throw that in for a +2 AC bonus. And that's it for Gishath. Nothing else in terms of traits or skills anyways. But this beast does have legendary resistances of 3 per day. So we'll go ahead and throw those in for an extra 60 hit points. And then, let's see here. Multi-attacks. What does Gishath do here? Oh, legendary actions as well. Alright. Nothing too crazy for this monster, but it's going to be an interesting one nonetheless. Alright, so multi-attack. Gishath makes 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its stomp or tail. It can't make both attacks against the same target. Not a big deal. And for its bite, it has an 11 attack bonus. So we'll make sure to put that in now. A wink. And then for the first attack and its bite, it's going to deal 39.5 average damage on its piercing damage bite. And then if the target is large or smaller, it must succeed on a dex save or be grappled. Until the end of the turn, the target is restrained. Alright, so we can throw in the Constrict here for the grappling effect of +1 AC bonus. And then, what else do we have? Something just turned off on my computer. That's weird. Okay. And then we have Swallow. So Gishath makes 1 bite attack against a large or small creature. And then we'll swallow stuff. So we can actually code down into the Swallow because I fixed it now. And let's see here. So Swallow will be adding in, let's see here, 21 acid damage at the start of each of Gishath's turns. Now, it doesn't seem to be that there's any limit. If the attack hits, that creature takes the bite's damage and is swallowed. Alright, so in theory, in the first 3 rounds of combat, round 1, Gishath would bite. And then on round 2, Gishath would probably swallow. Which means the swallow damage would come into play with another bite attack. And then we would deal 2 rounds of acid damage to 2 targets because there's no limit on the amount of targets that Gishath can have inside of its belly. So we would then say, alright, 21 points of damage times 2 rounds times 2 players. We're looking at a possible plus 112 damage per round for those 2 targets in those 2 rounds. So the depending on what happens with the legendary actions, we're going to look at some interesting things here. Hey, it's Frigid Gold. He says, or they say, hey man, behind on the VOD, so might not respond right away, but have you done the gelatinous cube yet? Would love to see it. I have not done the gelatinous cube yet, Frigid, and I will add that to my list before I continue on with Gishath. Let's see here. Whoops. Alright, that will be another one to go into the list here. Alright, back to Gishath here. We also have Stomp, which is another attack. So I'm going to skip attack number 2, since that would be another bite. And we have, let's see here, plus 11 to hit, plus 29.5 points of damage, and possibly knocking someone prone, which may or may not happen. And then the tail attack will be 25 points of damage. Alright. Now the multi-attack will end up being, what is it? 1 bite and a stomp or a tail. So we're just going to use the 2 highest ones here. And the multi-attack will be the bite plus the stomp, I believe it was. For a total of 69 average damage. Alright. Now let's take a look at what we have for legendary actions. Gishath can make 1 stomp or tail attack. Alright. So we will just take the stomp, since the stomp was doing more damage, and multiply that times 3. And stop autofilling. And then legendary action 2, the roar. Each creature that is within 120 feet of Gishath can hear it. Must succeed on a save or be frightened. Alright. It's helpful, but Gishath might be better off just attacking rather than roaring and wasting 2 of its 3 legendary actions. So, and since it's not part of the actual rotation, like dragons can do a roar, frighten a bunch of players, and then go into their attacks, I'm going to suggest that we skip the roar and the fear effects. We could potentially come back to that later if we find that there's something off with it. All right. So what are we looking at here for rounds 1 through 3? Well, round 1 will end up being the multi-attack to bite and stomp, plus a bunch of extra stomps. So that'll be round 1. Round 2 will have to be another bite attack to swallow, plus the legendary actions. And then round 3 will be, let's see here. How does this work out? Yes, they would bite again, but that would then swallow the target. I don't know. I think I may have been... Anything with swallow I may have goofed up on. Let me double check the rotation here. Yeah, because it has to intentionally swallow. So that would be its whole action, swallowing. Alright. Alright, well, we would say just another repeat of round 1 then. And then it would swallow on the next round. So then do we only get 1? Technically we haven't swallowed 2 targets yet in the first 3 rounds of combat. So let's see what happens here. Oh, Skynet. How you doing, man? How you doing there? Right now, we're currently looking at Gishath. I don't have a reference that I can show on screen, unfortunately, so I'm currently going through that which Cornucopia suggested, which is from the, what was it? Plane Shift Isolin book. I'm currently looking at that guy, or that monster. Big old feathered T-Rex thing. So I'm kind of working out some stuff at the moment that I'm trying to figure out with the swallow and whatnot here. What have I done? Okay. I've taken the swallow down because I think that was the correct way to do this because of how swallow works and the attack rotation. What in the world? Gishath is supposed to be a CR10, but I'm pulling a CR19 somehow. What? What? And motorcycle. Alright, let me work through this. And Skynet. Interesting username. I like that. Let me see what I might be doing wrong here. Let's take off the swallow damage from here. And then we'll say, alright, 21 there for the swallow for the second one. Wow. Right. Unless I don't... No, I didn't do anything wrong. Man, this thing has got a lot of damage to it. What? What in the world? Okay. Yeah, this is... I'm gonna have to go with this because of what's going on here. Round 1, Gishath is going to bite. And it's going to deal 39 points of damage, followed up with a stomp from its multi-attack for another 29 points of damage, and then it can do legendary actions. And at this point, I would say, sure, use all 3 of your legendary actions to make a stomp or a tail attack. That would be an additional 88.5 points of damage, so round 1, we're looking at roughly 157 points of damage. On round 2, Gishath would then do the swallow, which means they have to bite again, because Gishath makes 1 bite attack against a larger, smaller creature it's grappling, which would have been from round 1, and then swallows it, and deals 2 rounds of damage in the next 2 rounds of combat. So technically rounds 3 and 4, Gishath is dealing acid damage to the target in his belly. On top of that, not only is Gishath swallowing a creature after a bite, it's also doing its legendary actions again of stomping or tail whipping. And then round 3 is just a repeat of round 1, where it's going to bite another target, stomp or tail attack, and then stomp and tail attack a whole bunch of other times again for this extra amount of damage. And then on top of that, we're looking at an extra 56 points of acid damage from the swallowed creature. Now, the only other thing I could suggest is maybe using the DC from the swallow, but I wouldn't, because Gishath is doing more damage from its attacks, its physical attacks, than just the swallow damage. So I would keep the attack bonus here at 11. And, yeah, technically, Gishath is a CR 19 monster. With a DCR of 13 and an OCR of 24, this is absurdly out of balance. This is another extremely high out of balance monster. Let's just verify some stuff here. So, on average, Gishath should have 203 hit points. And, oh, no, I'm sorry, that's damage. All right, 263 effective hit points. So 263 is on the top end of a DCR 13, expecting AC 18. They have AC 19 from the effective bonuses here of the saving throws and the constrict grappling ability. And even if we don't count in the constrict, it's not going to do anything. So that ends up being what we got here? Yeah, we're 3 over, resulting in a +2 shift. Or no shift. No, let's see here. No. The no shift, because we're at 19 and it's expecting an 18. So we're only at +1, so there's no shift to the DCR 13. With all the damage I've found for Gishath, 203 damage is more or less right in the middle of an OCR 24. It's expecting an attack bonus 11. Gishath has an attack bonus 11, so there's no shift again to the OCR 24. And then when we do the math and average that out, we get a CR of 19. Yes, Cornucopia, I'm right with you on this. I did not expect this either. I expected, maybe a couple points off, but not this big of a jump. This is probably one of the bigger jumps within reason, and one that I can actually find mathematically here. Unlike Tiamat. Tiamat was crazy, and I had to extrapolate numbers for Tiamat's potential actual CR. This one's bonkers. Oh, man. Alright. So with that, Gishath is a CR 19 monster, unlike its printed CR 10. Don't know where they got that from. And just because I keep forgetting to do this, let me shift the expected CR 10 to 19 and see if that makes any changes here. Okay, that shifts a little bit and actually makes it worse. Because now, if we shift the expected CR to 19, the legendary resistance goes from 60 to 90 hit points, shifts the DCR up to a 15, and now Gishath is actually a CR 20. This is a CR 20. Well, let's see here. Very surprised my level 8 party beat this. It depends. How did the rolls go, Cornucopia? Because that is going to be the big, clutch thing here. If your rolls weren't where they should have been, and let's say your players had really great equipment, or the rolls were in their favor, this is probably why they ended up beating Gishath. Some other things, maybe if you tried using the roar, then that may have used up action economy to fend off and fight the players, depending on if they were strategizing and not staying clumped up, or staying clumped up so that Gishath couldn't use its attacks properly. So since the tail attack and the stomp attack can't make, or let me see here, the bite and the tail attack, if they're all facing one direction, then the multi-attack is going to get cut in half. So there's a lot of factors as to why your team of level 8 easily beat Gishath. It's hard to say, though, without knowing what your party composition is, what their gear was, and all sorts of other things. But this should be a CR 20, I guess. Sure. Oh man. All right. Gelatinous cube time. Let me reset this absurd set of variables here and find that monster. I know it's in the, I'm sure it's in the monster manual. Let me see here. And I want this. Shrink that up a bit. Monster manual. Let's see here. Where? Come on down to here. Let it catch up. Gelatinous cube. Okay. Alright, to follow up on Cornucopia, let's see here. Action economy was definitely in their favor, and Geshath just couldn't seem to get a grapple off. Also, it was a very casual one-shot where my players had a very strong party composition. Yeah. If it was a different type of party, maybe it wasn't a one-shot. If the players... Who knows? It could have been anything, to be honest. But it sounds like you have some really strategy-minded players when it came to that one-shot. Alright, let's zoom in on the gelatinous cube and take a look at this one here. Alright, gelatinous cube, a large ooze unaligned. Alright, we know it's a large, so we'll go here. And its AC is a 6. Wow. Oh man. It's got no... let's see here. Because of this -4 dex, everyone's AC is base 10. And then, yeah, because of that horrible dexterity bonus. This is why the ooze has a 6 for armor class. That's hilarious. Alright, and then... we're looking at 8d10 hit dice, followed up with a 20 constitution score, 6 wisdom, and 1 charisma, and this should be a CR2. Alright, there's our base stats out of the way for the gelatinous cube. We now look at the skills area, and all we have is condition immunities and senses. None of these are going to matter to our CR ratings, so we'll just move on. Next, we'll go into the skills and see that our ooze has 2 skills. Ooze cube and transparent. So ooze cube. The cube takes up its entire space. Other creatures can enter the space, but a creature that does so is subjected to the cube's engulf and has disadvantage on the saving throws. So let's see here. Creatures inside the cube can be seen but have total cover. A creature within 5 feet of the cube can take an action to pull the creature out. Doing so requires a strength save, and the creature making the attempt takes 10 acid damage. Alright, so that's going to be important. The cube can also only hold 1 large creature or up to 4 medium or smaller creatures inside of it at a time. So in theory, we'll see minimum 2 monsters or 2 creatures of medium size, because generally speaking, most players aren't large. Everyone else is usually medium or small. So this will take into effect in a little bit. Next, we have transparent. Even when the cube is in plain sight, it takes a successful wisdom perception check to spot a cube that has neither moved nor attacked. A creature that tries to enter the cube space while unaware of the cube is surprised by the cube. Okay. All right. So for the actions now for our gelatinous cube, we're looking at pseudopod, which all gelatinous things have, which is funny. And it has an attack bonus of 4, so we'll just switch that, which doesn't really move or make any changes right off the bat. And it does 10.5 points of acid damage. Well, since this is... Well, no, let's see here. We'll come over to the workspace and throw that in here. 10.5, no multi-attacks, so every round of combat is going to be that. So for the time being, we'll say this times 3. And that will get us to a CR 1/2 so far. We still need to get us up to a CR 1 or 2 at the moment. Now let's talk about the engulf. The cube moves up to its speed. While doing so, it can enter large or small creature spaces. Whenever the cube enters a creature space, the creature must make a dex save. On a successful save, the creature can choose to be pushed 5 feet back or to the side. Alright, so we will skip that because when we take into consideration this sort of stuff, we always figure that the monster succeeds. So on a failed save, the cube enters this creature space and the creature takes 10.5 points of acid damage. Very similar to the pseudopod. And is engulfed. The creature, let's see here. The engulfed creature can't breathe, is restrained, and takes 21 acid damage at the start of the cube's turn. When the cube moves, the engulfed creature moves with it. An engulfed creature can try to escape by taking an action to make a DC 12 strength check. Okay, so engulf is very similar to swallow. And with that, we're going to come over here and suggest that since our gelatinous cube can hold up to 4 medium creatures, we're going to add in at least a minimum of 2 because it's going to move and try to grab onto anything it can get its I was going to say hands, but it's pseudopods onto. So we're going to suggest that it's going to deal 21 points of damage to 2 players in 2 rounds. So in the first 2 rounds of combat, we're guessing that I may have overestimated something here, possibly. Alright, so maybe it's only 1 creature? Let's go with 1 creature instead of 2. I might be a little overzealous here. But it is requiring, let's see here, it is requiring DC checks, so that might be the saving grace for these, for players. Alright, so either the cube either is going to pseudopod or engulf, but it does the same amount of damage. But it is a dexterity save, so I don't know why I just moved that. Let's come over here and switch this to the DC save and say that we're looking at a DC of 12. And it's the same to get out of it. Okay. Right. CR4 for a gelatinous cube, possibly? Because of the DC... let's see here, DC 12? Wow, this is not what I had expected. Okay. How much damage are we looking at here? Maybe I'm doing something wrong with the math on this. Maybe that's the problem. Oh. No. No, that should be technically correct. If it's engulfed, it's very similar to a swallow. And it is engulfed. The engulfed creature can't breathe, is restrained, and takes 21 points of acid damage at the start of each of the cube's turns. The cube moves. Alright. So in theory, that's correct. If your players get stuck inside of a gelatinous cube, they're going to end up taking 42 points of damage. But why is it coming out at 56? That shouldn't be right. I think I have my math wrong here somewhere. Something may not be right there with the math on that, because it should be 2 out of 3 rounds of combat. It should be something like this. Let's see here. Oh no, you know what the problem is that, no, it's 42 times 2 divided by 3. We should be seeing 28 points of damage. So what did I mess up on in here? Oh, that's what I messed up on. Okay. There we go. Now let me go to my calculations here. And we're looking at swallow. This is also incorrect because I'm already multiplying it by 2. So no, let me leave this as 2 and not multiply this. So I think I may have messed up on the I probably messed up on the last monster as well, Cornucopia. I'll have to go back and look over that again when I do a shorts of it. All right, so if I do this, because it's always going to be times 2 rounds of combat. All right. 2 players get absorbed by the swallow, or by the engulf / swallow. And then that's multiplied by 2 rounds of combat. Alright, so if we get 2 players stuck in there, so it would be 21 times 2 rounds of combat times 2 players equals 84. And then we multiply that by 2/3. There we go, 56 points of damage. Man. I'm all over the place here. Alright, so if the gelatinous cube somehow is able to engulf 2 players, like we are expecting it possibly to, the gelatinous cube is going to end up being a CR4 monster because of how much damage it's doing in the engulf. Now, if we only have 1 target that gets engulfed, what are we looking at? Now we're looking at a CR2. Oh, actually, I've already, Vandari, I've actually done the Drow Inquisitor already. I have a shorts on that. Let me see here. Yeah, it's in there. I think I may have done both, a shorts and a video. If you go to my channel, you can't search that way very easily. Let me see here. You guys can see my back end. Let's see. Drow Inquisitor. Oh yeah. Oh man, this is an old one. Here, let me see if I can get you the link for that. Okay. Alright, let me just do something really quick here. I'm gonna do that. Oh, good, you got it. Alright, so you don't have to worry about the link. But if anyone else wants the link, there you go. Get out of here with that nonsense. The thing pops up. And then I need Streamlabs back. Okay, back to it. And we go back to the monster. So, for the gelatinous cube, basically only engulf 1 player. that's where we're at. If you only engulf 1 player and you can't get any others, or if somehow an engulfed player is pulled out, try to get 1 more. But to keep it at a CR2, only engulf 1 player. If you go overboard and somehow end up getting 3 players, let's say you somehow get all 3 players. Well, now our gelatinous cube is now at a CR6. So it seems like for every extra player beyond 1, for every like n number of players you get, it's going to end up ramping up the CR by like 2 steps. Yes, Cornucopia. We'll go with air quotes of close to CR10. I don't know how close we'll get to it, but whoo. Yeah, it's probably gonna be more like a CR15 maybe. So I'll have to fix that a little bit in my notes, and I'll when I do the short condensed version, I'll make sure that my troll, who every once in a while pops up and makes fun of me, will definitely put that into point of saying like, well, look at this dumb human, you know, how he does, because the troll is there to troll. All right. So gelatinous cube, only engulf 1 player. Who had requested that? Was that Frigid? Yes, Frigid Gold. Hopefully you get a chance to see this. And, you know, if you're playing the gelatinous cube, only engulf 1 player. Otherwise, every time you add 1 extra player, the CR goes up another 2 points because of that engulf damage. That is insane. All right. Let me take a note of the gelatinous cube. And what was that? CR2. And what were the variables? I don't remember what my variables were here for this. All right, let me fix this. All right, so we're looking at 1/8 and 4. Cool. 1/8, 4, 2, even, provided you only engulf 1 player. All right, back to the list here. If no one else has a suggestion, I will probably look at the Hobgoblin. Actually, you know, I have the... Let's take a look at the Correspond Emissary real quick. Is this going to be a big one? No. All right. Someone, I don't remember the name, had suggested Corresponds and was like, yeah, whatever. any of the corresponds. That's cool. So let's take a look at the corresponds since it's here. And while I have a few minutes left of the stream, we'll take a look at the correspond emissary from the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. And this is a medium aberration with 15 AC and let's see here, 12 D8 hit dice with a Constitution bonus of 18, 13 Wisdom, and 8 Charisma. And this should be a CR6. Let's see what happens. Alright, moving down into the skills area, we have 3 saves of Dex, Wisdom, and Charisma, resulting in a +2 AC bonus. Has 1 skill of Perception, doesn't matter. Damage immunities to Psychic, only 1, doesn't really matter, especially since it's Psychic. How often is that going to come into play? And then we will just skip right down into its traits with Magic Resistance, which is a common trait that comes up a lot. Man, everyone loves using that one. And then moving over to its actions area, we're done with the trait section. Our Correspond Emissary has a multi-attack of 3 talent attacks. Alright, so let's see what we have for talent attacks. Well, it's got a +6 to hit. And it's going to end up dealing, what we got here, 14 points of slashing damage from the talons. The Alluring Thrum the emissary emits a dreadful yet alluring hum. Each creature within 20 feet of the emissary that can hear it. And that isn't an aberration must succeed on a save or be charmed. Alright, well, unfortunately it's a charm effect. And there's the likelihood that this won't take effect because it's either all or nothing. And because it's all or nothing, I think this is why D&D suggests that most of these conditions don't apply to the CR. If it was all something or nothing, like, you know, AoE spells, like AoE spells, then we might have something there. And then we also have Crystal Spores. A 15-foot radius cloud of toxic crystalline spores extends out from the emissary. Alright, each creature must succeed on a DC Constitution save or become poisoned. While poisoned in this way, the creature takes 11 poison damage at the start of each of its turns. A creature can repeat the saving throw, ending effects on itself. Alright, that's not terrible. So we're looking at potentially minimum of 2 players, and that will be 11 just simply times 2 for the Crystal Spores. So we have a multi-attack here, and the funny part is that the multi-attack is going to be a lot more damaging than using the Crystal Spores. And unless you absolutely need players to be poisoned, I would skip over the Crystal Spores entirely. Hey, Soaked Soccer, nice you could join up. Yes, you caught it live. We are still here for a few more minutes while I am looking at the Correspond Emissary. There's a couple more monsters before that I had looked at. One of them I really just messed up entirely. The second one, Cornucopia had suggested. So I'm going to have to fix that one. But, yes, we're here live. Oh, the Speed King, you're here as well. Awesome. What's the most bizarre monster CR you've covered? Well, I thought it was Gishath, and I messed that one up because it's supposed to be a CR10. I thought I found a CR20, but I messed up on the swallow numbers. I gave it way too much swallow damage. So I have to look at that once more once I do the shorts for it, and it'll probably end up being something like a CR 14 or 15 probably, because I would literally be cutting the damage from swallow in half. Most bizarre CR you've covered. There's a couple of them. Let me see if I can pull them up quick. What was it? Shoot. It's the electric lady. I can't think of the name right off the bat. It's from shoot, what? Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. That one had a crazy CR imbalance because it was such a glass cannon. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it fast enough here. I'm pretty certain it was in one of the colored backgrounds too. Oh, here we go. This one here. What's her name? The Galvanic Blast Seeker. This one had probably the wildest of CR ranges, because its DCR was like a 1 and its OCR was a 10 or something. Luckily, this is like a lawful good or neutral good character, or monster anyway, so most likely you won't be fighting it unless the players do something really bizarre. But this was probably the wildest one that I've seen so far. Beyond, like I said before, Tiamat, or, you know, even the Tarask or something, because I had to extrapolate the CR ranges for that one. Alright, so back to our Correspond Emissary. So, as I was saying before, I would probably not use the Crystal Spores because the damage is so low. And it only technically at minimum would affect 2 players. If you can get more than 2 players and they're poisoned, awesome. But otherwise, I would just focus on using the 3 talent attacks here. Because if we do that, we will look at something like this. We'll say the multi-attack times 3. And sure enough, our emissary is actually a CR6. If we don't keep doing the multi-attack, then we'll end up with something like this. So let's say right off the bat we throw in the spores. So we have 22 points of damage here, and then for rounds 2 and 3 we'll do the multi-attack. Well, we're now looking at, I'm surprised. The damage range was just enough to keep it within the CR6, so sure, use the Crystal Spores. This is similar to the other monster Cornucopia had requested, the Flying Fiend. I don't remember. It had spores as well, and even using the spores didn't really make much of a change. That's really surprising, but when you look at the average damage of 35 to 42, that's only a difference of 7 points of damage. So it's a small difference, and the OCR does drop down just the tiniest bit. Let's see what we have here for, the final OCR is only going to be a 5. So even though the OCR does drop down 1 step, the high damage resistances and defenses that it has does allow it to stay at that CR6 range. So we got lucky here. The Correspond Emissary with its Crystal Spores still allows it to stay at the CR6. Alright, well, that is the end of the live stream, unfortunately. I will have to cut it off here because I have a few other things I have to take care of. I got some stuff to move around the house, and I have some dinner to get to. But thank you all for joining. This was probably my best live stream so far, having upwards of, we got here, 4 or 5 people talking in chat. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone that made it. This has been great. I forgot to put in my values for the Correspond Emissary. While you're all here, and before I end the live stream, is there any other monsters you'd like me to throw on my list that we could look at possibly next week or something? Because I'm going to move some of these monsters around and get my next couple weeks set up. Here, 666. Okay. Oh, yes, Soak Soccer. The Spirit Troll is actually coming out this week. Let's see here. Since you're here, this one, let's see here. Spirit Troll. Actually, it's out. You should see the shorts today. If you go to my channel after you're done here, it's the top, it's the top shorts one. The Duergar Despot, I actually have that one, Speed King. That one's done too. That one's a little older, but let's see here. Let me go back to my main contents. And let me see something here. Okay, Spirit Troll is, let's see here. Yes, the shorts is released today for the Spirit Troll, so that one's out right now. And actually the live stream will be available tomorrow, so you can see all of its information there. And the Duergar Despot. When was that one released? That one has a red background for shorts, and I did do an exposed live for that one as well. Kami Cookie, hello, how you doing? Unfortunately, you've caught me just at the end of the live stream, but nice to see some other people, unfortunately, showing up right at the end. And what did Cornucopia say? Have a nice evening. Thank you for the great stream, and thank you for joining. You were, you and Vanderi hit most of the live stream. I would appreciate having all the company. It was fantastic, and all the questions and seeing some random monsters. So, Cornucopia, oh shoot, I just messed up the name. Gishath will be fixed and will be a shorts for next week. And then the gelatinous cube I will end up probably having in the following week. So, yeah. Good stuff. This was some interesting monsters to take a look at. Alright, everyone. I will see you all possibly next week when I do another live stream, and thank you for joining me as we exposed more, D&D 5e monsters live. Have a great night, everyone. I just happened to see your comment there, Cornucopia, and thank you. I appreciate all the effort you've been putting in, leaving the comments on all of my content. It's been super helpful. Thank you.